One circle has farmers, one has crazy people, and where the two overlap, you'll find beekeepers right there in the center. I had to replace.
Today on Time We Discuss, I have Ben Cooper with me, and it's time we discuss what it's like being a beekeeper. Ben, thank you for joining me today.
Hey, Dan, I'm glad to be here today.
So this is really cool. I think this is really fascinating. I actually knew a guy that was a beekeeper, but I didn't really talk to him much about it. So I'm really curious to hear your perspective on it. So got to ask the obligatory question: what is a typical day like for you as a beekeeper?
On a day like today, it's either working with equipment or running after things. And I've got something I'll show what I went and picked up early this morning. But when it's raining outside, it's not a good day to be in the bees. But a typical day for me, as someone that uh, has I maintain about 12 hives. I like to keep about 12 hives. I've had as many as pushing 30. That's more than what my busy life will allow me to have. But a typical day will be, especially in the spring now, checking pretty routinely to make sure your queens are laying. And so it isn't, I would say if you had 20, 25 minutes per hive, to go through. Sometimes it takes a little bit more if you're doing a thorough check. So time constraints throughout the year is dependent on the seasons and what you're doing.
When you're working with these hives, now I'm just thinking about the pictures or videos that I've seen. You usually have these crates, for lack of better words, that are outside, and you like pull the part of it out, and you can see the bees on the, I guess, the honeycomb maybe. Or do you have like a? I guess what I want to ask is, what kind of structure do you have that houses all these bees, like all these hives? Do you have like something like a barn type thing that has all these hives? Where are they?
They are outside in three different yards. I have three different yards. I have my an apiary is a bee yard. So the term is apiary, and I have three apiaries. I use those if I need to split a hive and take them away so they can increase and grow on their own when an older queen needs to be replaced. The other option is they swarm in a tree and you have to climb and get them, hopefully not too far off the ground. So I keep them in square 10 frame or 8 frame boxes. The older I get, the heavier things get, Dan. You're too young to know that yet, but and so a brood box, that's the first main box, that's 10 frames and full of bees, honey, eggs, larvae, can weigh over 150 pounds. So a lot of people that maybe can't lift that, you don't always have to lift the brood box whenever it's that full. Sometimes you do if you have to restructure your stability on your bricks or whatever your base is. But lifting is a requirement unless we've actually found it's called lazy man's beehive, that instead of stacking boxes on top, the bees are 30 frames in a one level hive. And so those are called Kenyan or top bar hives. And so even people with disabilities can still be a beekeeper if they can't lift. All they have to do is lift that frame. So most of my boxes are 10 frame. I have a few 8 frame boxes. So I have 8 frames or 10 frames per layer. And so you start stacking them to allow the bees to grow and also for storing and making honey.
So if someone wants to get started as a beekeeper, what's the best way to get started from an educational perspective? Do they need to go to a university? Can they pick it up online from just meet up with someone that already does it and learn from them? What's the best way?
The best way is don't start off on your own and just go. There's tons of beekeeping videos on YouTube and you can learn from them. But here's an adage that most beekeepers, seasoned beekeepers, know. If you ask one question to 10 beekeepers, you'll get 12 different answers because some will change. So I happen to teach, I've been teaching for 13 years now. A beginning, I even taught a intermediate beekeeping class at a community college for continuing education. It's actually a 15 credit, 15-hour, I mean, 1 credit, 15-hour class that they get a certificate. So I cover pretty much everything that you need to know. If those are available in your area, your local extension office would know. If you don't have that ability, the next best is to find out where the local or the closest beekeeping association, a club, an organization. Not every county has one. Ours covers where I live is on the Mason-Dixon line, between right 1 mile from Maryland. So our club actually association has members from West Virginia, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. And so our club brings in some from 3 different states. And so it's good to have experience with clubs because 2 of my out yards are in Maryland. One, my home here is in Pennsylvania. And so I have to know the rules and regulations in both states, and they aren't the same. So you can be a certified or a licensed actually beekeeper. And there is, if you want to go to the full extent, it's tough, but you can become a master beekeeper as well.
So what kind of doors get opened if you are a master beekeeper as opposed to, I forget we said a license, I think it was a licensed beekeeper?
Most states require, the 3 states that I'm in require beekeepers to be licensed through the State Department of Agriculture. And that's primarily for disease control, knowing where if something breaks out, they can contact people. So all 3 states that are close to here require beekeepers to be basically licensed or not necessarily certified, but some actually require. Pittsburgh requires anybody that wants to be a beekeeper in the city limits of Pittsburgh, which is expanding and growing. They have to take a course. They absolutely have to take a course because having bees next door to somebody that doesn't like bees, you get taught how to basically manage your bees to be more friendly, more acceptable in a social, human speaking social environment. So where you are, they should tailor those things in their educational classes, whether it's a bee club, whether it is a structured class like I teach at Allegheny College in Maryland, or the mentor that you would work with.
What about some of the things that you actually do? Are you getting honey from the bees? Are you removing bees from people's residences when they have these unwelcome visitors? What are some of those actual things that you are doing?
Everything and plus more. And in another week or two, somebody found bees in a log or in a tree that was cut down. And so the bees are in this cavity in a tree. That's their natural habitat, but they want to get them out. They've never done that before. So I will go with a sledgehammer, wedges, and a bee vac, and we will split that log in half and then take the comb, find the queen, and vac up all those bees and then put them in a hive. If we can get the queen, put her in a cage, then the bees won't fly off. And so that's just one thing, finding and getting them out of houses and structures, because most people are concerned they don't want to kill the bees. Other people will just spray and get rid of them. It is not illegal to kill them, especially if somebody, if they're in a house and next to a doorway and somebody has really severe anaphylactic reaction and they need to go to the hospital and they don't have an EpiPen. Sometimes they don't know that until they get stung. And so sometimes it is the right thing to do to actually depopulate that hive. But most of the time, try to get them out, put them in frames, in boxes, and then haul them to one of my bee yards, or give them to somebody that wants to start beekeeping, but maybe doesn't have the finances to get ready to do that quite yet.
Let's stick with that for a second. If someone wants to start, what kind of capital do they need up front to get started? Is this something that's really expensive to get into, aside from the education, just as far as like the actual getting the physical stuff that you need to support the bee colony? How expensive is it to break into this?
You can do it in different ways. If you want to, I knew a guy that said, I'm going to retire and I'm going to have 50 hives of bees. He did, but didn't take any classes and lost 49 of them his first winter. So it's best to educate first, at least a little. And when I teach my beekeeping classes, guaranteed we're going to the bee yard as part of that class, because beekeeping is hands-on. You've got to see it. So the expense could be you learn how to build a bait hive and you lure a wild swarm into a box. Then you don't have to buy the bees. You have to buy the equipment. So if you wanted a number to start off, $500, and then it would be less for each box that you get, because you have your beekeeping essential tools, the equipment that you need, then each hive, I would say that you could probably get away if you're buying in bulk or buying with another friend or in a group, you could get away with, you know, $300 per hive to start off. But then I need probably, if you've seen those square boxes out in the yards, people have them out in bee yards. You need probably 5 boxes per colony of bees. And in the summer, in June, probably by the time June and July roll around, there could be 50, 60,000 bees in one colony. So then you can step it up depending on how many hives you want to maintain, how many yards you want to maintain.
That is mind blowing. Just imagining the sheer volume of bees that could be in such a small, generally speaking, such a small area. That is just mind blowing. Going back, aside from the strength required to lift up some of these materials, what are some other skills that someone really needs to acquire in order to be a beekeeper?
You got to listen to the bees. The bees are excellent communicators, even to humans. When you lift that lid off, the barometric pressure could be on the rise or on or dropping, and critters like that know that. And so a storm might be coming and you don't know it, but they know it. And they will bounce right off of they'll come and bounce right off of your screen, inches from your face. They're telling you, communicating with you, don't mess with us. Or imagine a 95-degree day with 99% humidity. You're sweating and you're hot, you're bothered. They are too. Don't bother us. They'll let you know. But listening and learning, reading the frames, pulling up a frame, looking at it, finding eggs, being able to see eggs, seeing larvae in the different stages. You don't need to find your queen. Most beekeepers want to say, where's my queen in each box? All I do is pull up a frame. If I see eggs, the queen's been there in the last 3 days, so I'm not worried. So learning how to read and communicate with what the bees are telling you based on the frames and their aggression levels. And they don't always, they could be calm one day and mean another. Just real quick, years ago, I had a bear come and knock 2 of my hives over. I saved those hives, but I could not get my riding lawnmower within 35 feet of those hives because the ground would vibrate and they would come after me. So there's training that I do. What do? You actually kill the queen and reset the pheromones because that's one of the ways they communicate with each other. Pheromones, aggression versus other types of pheromones. So there's a lot of things you need to do. You need to be on the lookout as a beekeeper. Take a walk every day around your bee yard to see if there's clusters of bees hanging in trees, or put bait hives out. Last week I put bait hives out and there was already bees checking them out because their natural way to multiply is swarms. So they're looking for a big open space that will protect them from the elements. So I put boxes out in my bee yards to make sure that I'm collecting them rather than they go into somebody's house or, disturb something else. And so I just try to be a polite beekeeper, a good neighbor, and basic practice what's called best management practices for beekeepers.
We talked about the weather a little bit, and right now we are recording this in April of 25. Pretty miserable outside. I am just a shy bit north of you. I am also in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So what is work like year round? Are you, as from a beekeeping perspective, is there very little to do from like November to February? What's that like for you?
No, as long as you got your bees prepared, your mites, the mites are like, just think of them as small little ticks, but the Varroa destructor is the biggest enemy of bees right now. And they feed off of bees and larvae, and your bees become anemic going into winter. That's not a good thing. They don't hibernate, they eat food all winter long and rotate. But to know that your bees are well and healthy going into winter, then your time is spent working on equipment and maybe if you manage a web page or if you got stockpiles of honey that you deliver to stores mom and pop stores, that kind of stuff, that keeps you busy. A lot of people like honey or wax products, candles for the Christmas and holiday season. So you might be doing hand creams, chapstick, all kinds of stuff during the holiday season as much as you want to get involved. But one of the things that I try to say, I'm successful if I can get 50 to 100 pounds harvested off of every one of my hives. So a 12-ounce bear that you typically see in the store, just go look at the price. That's a 12 ounces actually is a pound of honey because it's heavy, and $7 to $12 depending on where you are for that bear. So you can make a decent amount of money by selling it. Some people just want to have it for their garden and fruit tree pollination, and that's essential. You can double your fruit and vegetable yields by having a beehive. And so sometimes it's a secondary thing. But bees are so much of an indicator species. If the bees aren't there in your garden and you don't see them, that's a problem. This year was a major winter. We lost 62% of the hives nationally. 62%. Just imagine, Dan, if that was a dairy farmer that lost 62%, or anybody else that's in the agricultural business, or a car dealership that somehow, somebody came and stole 62%. That would wipe you out. Beekeepers are, if you're familiar, you like those Zen diagrams. One circle has farmers, one has crazy people, and where the two overlap, you'll find beekeepers right there in the center. So we keep going back. I had to replace some of the ones that I lost this winter because it was a devastating year. And we're still trying to figure out what the root cause is for all that loss.
One thing I did want to mention, or one thing I want to ask you, I was speaking with Anne Lazurko. She was a grain farmer up in Canada. And she talked about when she was, before that, she was a dairy farmer, and different times of day, you have to do different things. So for you as a beekeeper, are you limited to specific time frames? Like you're supposed to do maybe something in the morning for the bees, or is it really like anytime you can do whatever you got to do?
Well, here's what I like to do, Dan. When about 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, half the bee force is out flying. It's hot, but I love hot weather. Hot weather works with me fine. And I can read and look at frames much better when half the population is out flying and working. So I don't use smoke all the time. And I can just pull frames up and look at them and do what I need to do because they're busy flying and doing what looks like chaos to the non-beekeeper. Every bee has a job to do and they're doing it effectively. The afternoons, I retired 6.5, 7 years ago. Retired early for a lot of different reasons. I retired at 57 and I get to spend more time than when I worked, plus taught, plus did everything else that I'm involved with. So I'm still always caught behind because I'm a mentor. And when somebody calls, usually by April 1st, I get a call, a visit, or a text every day from now till probably middle June, because I've taught so many people and told them, if you have questions, call me. And so they do. And so I kind of do help them with their problems before I get to mine. And then I have to go to 2 other yards that are away from home.
Yeah, I was speaking with Doug Lawrence. He's a mentor, and we were just talking about how that whole relationship works. That's really cool that you serve as a mentor and you're helping other people out. That is really really cool. One thing I wanted to ask you, talking about honey. Now, I've heard this before that it is good for people to have local honey. Like there are certain advantages to that. Is that true, or is that kind of like an old wives' tale that doesn't matter if it's local or not?
Yes and no. Even doctors will say it's good for people with allergies. But my biggest allergy, when I've had those shots down my arm, my biggest allergy is dust mites. Dust. Bees don't make pollen or honey off of dust. So it's not going to help at all. My next is ragweed. Ragweed is bad. You're in Pennsylvania, you should know what ragweed is come August. And it's hay fever, that kind of stuff. They take pollen off of ragweed, but really no nectar. So if you really want to replace it with, instead of getting shots, find a beekeeper that collects the pollen and get it during that plant that you're allergic to. That's better, much better. It equates to getting a shot. When you get a shot, white blood cells go to that injection spot, and you've damaged your body. When you ingest pollen, you're not doing it. You're doing it more holistically, and it will help and provide. And you don't have to pay the doctor for all that stuff. So pine pollen, they don't get honey from pine trees, but they really do get a lot of pollen from pines and other things that are in bloom. There are some things that are nasty tasting. You're in Pennsylvania, you've heard of the spotted lanternfly, right?
Oh yeah.
And did you know that spotted lanternflies, their makeup cannot process sugar? So if they're pulling and feeding off of a maple tree that has a high sugar content, it goes through their system in excrement out on a tree. That sweet substance, then bees will come actually collect that and make honey out of it. If it's properly labeled, it's called honeydew. Some might say the better term would be honey poo, but it's not from the bee, it's from the spotted lanternfly. But, some people love it. It has a smoky taste to it, but some people just totally disregard and don't like the idea that this came from some other animal, bugs, excrement. But bees are resourceful and they're going to collect it because they're going to store. I try to store and save 80 to 100 pounds of honey for my bees to make it over winter. And then the rest of that gets sold as a product for my hives, from my hives.
So fascinating. So fascinating. Ben, I am running a little short on time, but one thing I like to do whenever I'm speaking with someone, I like to give them the opportunity to talk about a project they're working on, a cause they believe in. If you want to talk more about maybe your business or something like that, the floor is yours.
Okay, I want to turn, not purposely, but I want to turn and show that this is a perfect day to have this podcast because I know this will air later, but I just picked up my bees and I picked up bees for other people as well. Being a mentor means that you're going to do a lot of work for other people. Whether one guy had a stroke and he couldn't lift his hives anymore. I helped him and do stuff. So I would rather make more beekeepers, Dan, than have more hives and make more money. That doesn't make sense because I'm not in it for a full-time job. I retired and I have my income, but I just love teaching and helping others with beekeeping issues. I grew up on a farm, went to Penn State, got an ag degree, worked for Maryland Department of Agriculture for 32 years and retired. It's just all about critters and working with in a harmonious way, not in a let me take everything. The old beekeepers used to, in Appalachia, used to cut down the tree and take the honey. They didn't care about the bees. I'd rather take care of the bees so that they then can take care of me and my, it's nice to have jars of honey to cook with and eat and give as gifts and to sell.
That is awesome. What you said kind of reminds me. I was speaking with Dr. Emma. She is a pediatric neurologist. And in the same segment of the episode, she said one thing that she feels very strongly about is keeping kids out of the ICU. She's like, it's not a good business model for me, but keeping them out and keeping them safe is more important. And that's kind of very similar to what you're saying is making more beekeepers. You don't need more money, just more beekeepers would be good. Ben, if there is a way for people to get in touch with you, I'll make sure that we include that on the website. If you're looking for more mentees, if they're looking for a mentor, they have someone that they can maybe bounce ideas off of or something like that. I'll put that on the website of links all over the place. So when people are trying to find you, they can easily do that if you so desire.
Yeah, that's fine. I love doing programs, and kids are attracted to bees, and I take my observation hive to schools and other places and speak on beekeeping. They are important. They are indicator species that if something's going wrong with the bees, that's a bigger issue going on in the climate, in not just the climate, but in that environment wherever. And so when the whole U.S. is affected this winter, there's issues going on. So we just got to be good adversaries and good ambassadors for the beekeeping industry, whether it's a sideliner, whether it's an individual backyard person, or it's somebody that wants to move into it commercially.
Ben, it's been great having you on Time We Discussed, and we learned what it's like to be a beekeeper.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.